Hey guys, Jerry here. How's it going? Hope you had a great weekend. Up here in Canada, it was Thanksgiving, so needless to say, I had a little bit more turkey than usual. But it's my favorite holiday of the year, and it's all good. So, speaking of holidays, I have a little story to share with you today, and this will take me back 2 years on this actually really interesting on Christmas Eve, so like December 24th of 2009. So. I wake up in the morning, I go to the gym because I'm like, well, okay, we're driving to Amy's parents for Christmas Eve dinner, so I want to get a good workout in before I'm away for a couple days. So I go to the gym, and it's like 8 a.m., and I'm wearing a different pair of shoes than I normally wear, which is, I'm not thinking it's a big deal. So anyways, I go to the gym, and I'm like, okay, I'm in the mood for a good squat workout. So I go to the gym, get to the squat rack, do my warm-up, loading up the weight, and I'm like, okay, I want to really push it today. So I'm training really heavy, getting towards my max, doing a couple sets. And I think on my third or fourth set, I'm doing about 315 pounds, right? So about 3 plates or whatever that is on each side, which for me was pretty much my max or very close to it. So I was going for about 2 to 3 reps, okay? So on my third or fourth set, and again, I'm getting lots of rest between sets because when we're training strength, lots of rest, we're not rushing things. On my final set, or it ended up being my final set, I go down into about my second rep, I think, and I couldn't get up. So it was a very, very scary moment because in slow motion, if I'm going to replay to my mind here, what happened is as I descended into my squat and tried to push back up, my body literally just buckled and I crumpled to the floor. The barbell just fell over my head, and I was done. Like I was laying on the floor. I fell on the floor. Somehow the weight got over top of me, thankfully, and I fell to the floor. I was lying on my back, and I could not believe what had just happened. You know, like when something really bad happens, and you just kind of like run through it again in your mind, and you're like, how on earth am I still alive? Type of thing. That's exactly what happened. And I was laying there, and I didn't want to move because I wasn't sure if I had done any damage. So I just kind of wiggled my toes, wiggled my hands. Made sure everything was in working order. Took a couple deep breaths, to make sure everything in the core and the diaphragm was okay. But the worst part is that in the gym, nobody came over to see if I was okay, and I mean it's ridiculous. But that's a big city thing for you. But nonetheless, I was laying on the floor for about 10 minutes. Finally realized that okay, I think I'm all right. Rolled over onto my stomach, got myself back up because I didn't want to do a full sit up after having crushed my back. And got back up. Needless to say, I was done the workout. I didn't even put the weights back. I didn't even care. Well, they were on the floor really at that point, so it didn't matter. Walked to the change room, and I was just like, again, just in total shock at what had just happened. I could not believe that. First of all, I've been squatting for at this point more than 10 years and lifting heavy and not a problem. And the one day that obviously it's Christmas, and I'm just like, oh man, this is not good. Now the other stupid thing that I did, and if you know a squat rack has the inside part of it, which you can put up the bars to support the weight if it falls. Well, I didn't use the inside of the rack. I went outside of the rack to do my squats, and I don't know why I do that, but since then I've obviously never done that anymore because it's just ridiculous, right? The squat rack is there to protect you, just in case you can't get out of the push, and there's a great lesson for you. So stay inside the squat rack if you're doing anything with that kind of stuff, heavy weights, So anyways, made my way to the gym, called my good friend Henry, who's a chiropractor. He gave me some really good advice. But the worst part is that I had to drive about 3 hours after that to our in-laws for dinner, and just I had this Dr. Ho's machine. I don't know if you guys remember the Dr. Ho, like electrical firing type of TENS machine, whatever it is. I don't know if it helped, but anyways, I had to keep that on there for a while just to get my muscles out of spasm, and it wasn't a very fun drive. So that's the story, and the worst part is that it wasn't this I had back pain. I had some issues with my back for at least 6 months after that, and the worst part is that it's not so much the back pain, but it's the confidence of not trusting your body to be able to push your limits, right? So it took me a long time to not only strengthen my core, my back, and everything else properly, but more importantly, to develop the confidence to be able to take on that new challenge of doing squats again. And I really don't do squats anymore, mainly because I'm in a gym that doesn't have a squat rack, which kind of sucks. But it's probably a blessing in disguise because if you don't do things properly, it really, really can't hurt. So what I want to share with you as a result of that in this video are a couple tips if you suffer from back pain that might help you out. And again, I'm not a back pain specialist, but a couple of these tips come from my good friend Jesse Canone, who is a back pain specialist and expert, and he's helped over more than 200,000 people with back pain. So these are a couple of things that he suggested to me way back in the day, and they helped me out, so I want to obviously help you out as well. If you suffer from back pain in any way, shape, or form, the thing with back pain is that it can manifest in a lot of different ways, and it can be caused by a lot of different things, right? Not just like breaking your back doing a squat, but it can be caused by sitting, picking up a pencil, twisting and turning, sit-ups, all sorts of stuff, right? There's all sorts of causes for back pain. So here are 3 things that I want to share with you today that might help you out. The first thing is don't be a slouch, right? Posture matters, okay? And if you look at when I'm talking about posture, as you'll see, I'm kind of I'm bouncing up and down here. That's because I'm sitting on my stability ball right now. Sometimes I'm sitting on a chair, sometimes I'm sitting on my stability ball. And the reason I'm sitting on my stability ball right now is because the chair is upstairs. And this is a good excuse to demonstrate this on video. So the good thing about sitting on a stability ball, and it doesn't have to be on a ball, if you're sitting in general, okay, because you're sitting right on your tailbone when you're sitting. Okay, that's one of the worst things you can do, and that's why sitting is such a problem for human beings. So I'm going to show you from the side what this should look like. So if I'm sitting from the side right now, if I'm sitting in a chair, okay, I'm kind of slouched forward, right? My shoulders are kind of round forward, my head is kind of tilted forward, and if I'm typing, that posture over time is going to lead to all sorts of impingements for my shoulders, neck pain, all kinds of stuff. So when we're sitting, we want to do our best to align our bodies up, okay? So my head is going to be tucked back slightly. My ears should be right over my shoulders, or ideally in a straight line, okay? So I'm not protruded forward, I'm not looking down, right? So this is a very important thing, especially if you're at a computer. This is one of the really nice things I like about having a new desktop computer as opposed to a laptop, is that I'm able to look at it at eye level, okay? So this ball's a little bit too high for me, so I'm a little bit too high still, but ideally, like right now, I'm not really at a perfect eye level. If I was at my laptop, I'd be right about here, okay? So it's very different, and that slight range of motion, that angle in the neck can make a huge difference when we're talking about hours and hours and hours built up over time, okay? So think about this, shoulders back and down, okay? Keep your ears in alignment with your shoulders, and think of it as a workout if you want. When you're sitting down, really just squeeze those shoulder blades back, bring them down. You don't want you don't want them way up here, right? Keep them down. And you'll also notice some imbalances. I noticed that this shoulder here is, as you can probably tell, is a little higher than this one, okay? So those are some imbalances that, I've tried to correct over time. But all that stuff can predispose an individual to different issues, okay? So that's just the first thing. The second thing you want to look at is doing things like yoga or stretching. When I started doing yoga several years ago, it made a huge difference for me, and that's because I've got tight hamstrings, hip flexors, and calves. So when I started doing yoga, I really was able to lengthen and alleviate a lot of that tension. So that's made a huge difference, and especially if you're sitting, guys. What happens when you sit is that those hip flexors get tight, okay? Because they cross the hip joint, and if the hip joint, right, is in a constantly flexed position, so if you're sitting like this, your hip flexor would run from kind of here to here. So if you're constantly bent forward or in a seated position, that muscle will get shortened. Okay? It's a phenomenon known as creep, whereas if you take a material and you keep it in a fixed position for an extended period of time, it will change its length. Okay? So that's why it's important to you, if you're sitting down, get around, move around every 15 to 20 minutes. Don't sit in the same position forever. And stretching will make a huge difference. So stretch out those hip flexors. Yoga is amazing because it really hits everything. Just don't do any of the stupid back bend stuff or handstands off the top of your head. You don't need to do that stuff. But everything else in yoga is great, and I highly recommend it. It made a huge difference for me. The third thing is looking at the shoes that you're wearing and making some adjustments. Okay, and I've talked a lot about this with our treadmill trainer stuff, in that I've moved away from, several years ago now, I've moved away from a lot of those big, clunky, supportive shoes to a very minimalist, almost like a barefoot type of shoe. And for my feet, now again, this will change depending on your foot, right? Low arch, high arch, neutral, that kind of stuff, and your specific needs. But for me, what has worked best is moving away from those big clunky supportive shoes to a minimalist shoe like a Nike Free or a Vibram 5 Fingers, both of which I use pretty exclusively now. So I'm moving to flat shoes, and it's made a huge difference for me in terms of biomechanics, the way my hips have shifted, my body's shifted. Because again, like I used to work in retail when I was a lot younger, and I remember standing on the floor for 9 hours a day. My back would just be like on fire. My hamstrings would be getting tight, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that I was, standing in shoes that have a raised heel, and we pretty much all do that. Even if you're not a woman who doesn't wear high heel shoes, you're still wearing heels because most runners, or even dress shoes, have a platform on the heel and shifts the way your body naturally is aligned and tilted, and over time that can lead to a lot of different tension in areas that don't need to be there. So look at moving towards more of a barefoot type of shoe if you can. So the benefit there is it allows the feet to do their work, right? So the feet, those muscles in the feet can get stronger, and that's really important, right? Because it gives the central nervous system in your brain a good sense of feedback of what it's experiencing, as opposed to being in a kind of like a very supportive cast-like shoe. So, anyways, those are 3 things that have really helped me out, and thankfully my back is really stronger than ever. I feel stronger than ever, my core is stronger than ever, and my personal goal is just to get stronger and fitter every single year. So I'll be fitter next year than I was this year. That's my goal. That's a cool challenge. So those are 3 tips that have helped me out, and if you want more of this kind of stuff, again, I'm not the back pain expert, but my good friend Jessica Canone is. Below this video is a link to a free presentation that he has that will really open your eyes up to at least one very, very simple and powerful trick that you can use to eliminate back pain fairly quickly, and also in a prolonged sense, in a prolonged manner, because you don't want back pain to go away for today and then come back tomorrow, right? So Jesse Canone is the man to turn to when it comes to back pain stuff. And just below this video, there's a link somewhere on this page to check it out. And again, if you suffer from back pain, this is stuff, you definitely have to check out his stuff, because he's helped a lot of people out. He's helped me out. And so yeah, so there we go. So that's my story. That's my story about how I crushed my back doing squats and how I eventually got back to stronger than before, and how you can do the same. And remember, don't ever give up hope, right? Don't ever give up hope. Keep going, never give up, and it'll work out for you in the long run. Okay? I'll talk to you soon.